One of the reasons why I used to find having difficult conversations or giving and receiving feedback and also facilitating performance reviews, it's because I was not making time to do the inner work and reflect, right? And so once I've had this epiphany and have invested time since last year to do the inner work and invest in upskilling my leadership and people management skills, I find it way less challenging to have difficult conversations, to hold people accountable, and also to acknowledge when I'm wrong. In this installment, I'm going to share my process of reflecting on my management skills, particularly when it comes to the relationship with our nanny. So I do this every quarter and I usually ask myself questions. Questions are so powerful and can gear you in the right direction if you answer them honestly. So one of the questions that I ask is, am I intentionally creating a healthy working environment? What is it that I can improve? So I'm currently distant parenting. I got a job early this year in another province, and my kids, together with the nanny, they are staying with my parents. So my plan was to check in on our nanny every single week to assess if she is well. Because I'm not physically there, I might not be privy if she's not satisfied. And by checking in every week, I'm making it easier for her to be able to approach me with anything that she might not be happy about. My plan flopped. You guys, I did not check on her like every single week like I planned. I snacked. I allowed life to get the better of me. I think I also took advantage because my parents are generally cool people. And this quarter, I'm going to do much better. I have set reminders on my phone so that I can ensure that I check in. Working on maintaining long-term working relationships might seem unnecessary and mundane in the moment, but I have seen some nannies working for families for years, and then all of a sudden they don't pitch without any notice, and that is just heartbreaking, because if you thought your relationship with your nanny is great and then all of a sudden they just don't pitch, you are going to be asking yourself questions like, did I do enough? If she wasn't happy, why didn't you tell me? You are going to assume all sorts of things. And this is why I highly recommend that you reflect at least every quarter to mitigate the possibility of your nanny being unhappy and without you noticing it. Some nannies are able to be professional and perform their duties diligently, even if they are not happy. It is not everyone, when they start being unhappy, then they disengage and underperform. You can't rely on people's actions to gauge if they are happy or not. It is by being open to have conversations and creating an environment where your nanny feels safe to express her grievances without overthinking if they are going to be fired. That is when you will truly know whether your nanny is happy or not. The second question I usually ask myself is, am I actively working on my toxic traits to be a better person and a better employer? So I'm recovering from being passive aggressive. And so I ordered situations where I could have spoke up and assess if I should face them head on. And if I didn't, ask myself, why didn't I face them head on in that moment? Is there something that I'm picking up currently that I'm not liking that needs to be addressed? What is the game plan for me to articulate my feelings in a healthy, constructive manner? And I don't only ask myself these questions when it comes to our nanny. I also assess other areas in my life, because how you do anything will influence how you do everything. So toxic traits are sometimes a trauma response, and taking time to reflect and being honest with yourself, you will get to assess if you need to get help through therapy or getting a life coach so that you can work through this. Because not working through this will contribute in you creating a hostile working environment for your nanny. And I realized this for myself in 2019 when I went through 3 nannies in 9 months, that I was part of the problem. I'm going to discuss some of the toxic traits that you might relate to that are contributing from hindering you from creating a healthy working environment for your nanny. And I hope that if you do relate to any of these toxic traits, you will get to work on them. The first one that comes to my mind is being a disengaged employer. So people that have nannies and are disengaged, they like having the convenience and the rewards of having a nanny, but they avoid meaningful involvement. As long as the kids are looked after, they are fine. Everything else that happens in between, they don't make much effort to actively work on having a healthy connection with their nanny. And I get life gets busy and sometimes we are on survival mode, but your lack of involvement might make your nanny feel frustrated. There is an article that is written by Scott Gregory where he is talking about absentee leaders. I will leave the link to this article in the description down below and you can check it out. He talks about that being ignored by your manager is way more toxic than being treated unfairly. He also talks about how constructive and destructive leadership impact is immediate, whereas the impact of being a disengaged leader will take way longer to appear. And this makes sense as to why some nannies' performance slack after 2 years or so. It is because you have been disengaged and they are now used to that, you know. And it might sound ideal for you to let your nanny have freedom and for you to minimally inspect, especially nannies who are highly experienced. But remember, you have to inspect what you expect. And this is not the same as micromanaging. There is a huge difference between micromanaging and you doing your due diligence when it comes to your child and household. Speaking on micromanaging, being a micromanager is also another toxic trait. When you are micromanaging your nanny, it could be that you have trust issues, or it could be a sign of mom guilt. And even though you have to inspect what you expect, you don't have to obsess over the details because you are stifling your nanny's creativity and growth. And they might leave because they will feel unseen and undervalued too. Similarly to being a micromanager, another toxic trait that will make your nanny feel unseen and undervalued is when you are hyper independent. So even though you hired a nanny with the knowledge that you need help, when you are hyper independent, your nanny will not get the chance to settle in her role because in your mind, you believe you can do it all. And this confuses your nanny. It confuses your nanny because when you employed her, you gave her a clear job description. But now you're doing some duties yourself because you just can't help it. And because of this, your nanny will feel small and not confident in her role. They are going to question their capabilities and might leave you as it is clear to them that they are not needed. Another toxic trait is when you are hyper dependent. And I do understand that there are single mothers who have a very minimal support system and they also have demanding careers. So what happens is they end up over depending on their nannies. So their nannies end up leaving because they will be overworked and they probably feel undervalued too. Some nannies, when you depend on them a lot, they will start feeling like they are indispensable and they will use the situation to their own advantage and start causing trouble. If you find yourself depending on your nanny a lot, try hiring a babysitter on a part-time basis so that they can relieve the nanny. Having mentioned these toxic traits, I have realized the importance of striving to be interdependent. We are created to be needy and to be needed at the same time. And so sometimes these toxic traits are trauma response, and I hope we will all get to heal and be able to discern when we can depend on others and when we need to be independent, and also how to hold space for those who depend on us and be able to set boundaries when we feel like people are doing too much. And so the third question that I get to ask myself when I'm reflecting is, which leadership or management skills do I need to develop so that I can serve our nanny better? Do I need to work on my communication skills, or do I need to work on my emotional intelligence, or do I need to delegate better, or be a better listener. So whatever I feel I need to work on, I usually listen to podcasts that are discussing these topics, or I listen to a book. I personally prefer listening to audiobooks than reading, just to get more insights and see how I can incorporate these lessons in my life, you know. My question to you now is, what do you think you need to work on? Let us know in the comments. I hope that you have found value in this installment and you get to see the importance of reflecting. My life has definitely changed for the better when I started doing this, and I know that yours will change for the better too when you get to do the inner work. Until the next episode, take